Hello and welcome to my channel. Arknights Global is finally out of its month-long slump and so am I. Sorry for the lack of videos in the last month or so. I've fallen into the VTuber rabbit hole and I can't get back out. Sorry KOB. It seems like the title for Best Doggo is already out there. Now that I'm back from my adventures, let's take a look at the newest operator in the game, shall we? Dorothy is a 6-star specialist from the Trapmaster archetype. Operators from this archetype boasts a long range and can use traps to assist in combat. These traps won't be counted in the deployment limit and you can deploy up to 8 of them in the stage at Elite 2. Dorothy's traps effects vary depending on her skills. Do note that you're unable to place traps onto the tile where enemies are standing on, and they are unable to target flying or invisible enemies. Each trap has a DP cost of 3 and a cooldown of 5 seconds between every deployment. Moving on to her stats, they are average to say the least. The main selling points are her fast attack speed, low DP cost, and having the same range as a marksman sniper. Dorothy's kit heavily relies on her traps to contribute to the team, so Dorothy's damage isn't great on her own. Next up are her talents. With her first talent activated, Dorothy will be able to deploy up to 8 traps and store 10 of them. When Dorothy is deployed, she'll immediately deploy 2 traps onto random tiles in her range. This effect can be triggered even after she is retreated and redeployed, similar to Ash's talent that stuns enemies upon deployment. As for her second talent, Dorothy's attack increases for every triggered trap. This can stack up to 20%, given the fact that most of Dorothy's skills heavily revolves around her traps and not the operator herself. It's a great addition to make Dorothy contribute more to the team. Great to see Hypergriff actually putting some thought into designing the operator's kit, unlike some other gacha games. Moving on to her skills, all of them have an active and passive effect. The active effect for all 3 skills are the same. It gives her 1 extra trap for every 12 SP gained at Mastery 3. The passive effect for Dorothy's first skill makes her traps deal a burst of physical damage when triggered and reduces the target's defense for a short duration. While the defense debuff is decent and can be crucial in aiding physical damage dealers, we already have so many great debuffers for both physical and arts damage. One example is Shamare. Her deployable doll can debuff the enemy's attack and defense by 50% for 15 seconds at Mastery 3. Not to mention it can target all enemies in a decent range unlike Dorothy's traps. This skill isn't the best when it comes to debuffing, though it serves its job well. The main selling point of this skill is the high attack scaling from the burst damage, as it is the highest out of the 3 skills. Unfortunately, due to the single target nature of this skill, her other 2 skills are usually preferred. Now, if you think this video is helpful, a sub will be nice. Thanks guys. Next up is her second skill. When a trap is triggered, all enemies in a 1.2 tile range receives a burst of physical damage and is bound for a short duration. If the trap hits only 1 target, they are bound for a longer duration. At Mastery 3, the bind on 1 enemy lasts for 6 seconds, which is longer than the trap's deployment cooldown of 5. This makes Dorothy's traps one of the most consistent binders out there. That being said, since you're unable to deploy traps onto the same tile as enemies, it's impossible to bind them on the same tile over and over again. Overall, a decent skill for damage and crowd control. Lastly, we have her third skill. Unlike her other skills, Dorothy's traps now deals arts damage upon activation. The traps will also hit all enemies in a crossed shape range and applies slow for 5 seconds. If there are other traps in range, they will explode after a delay of 2 seconds. This gimmick allows you to set up a chain explosion that damages enemies across multiple lanes, but it can also accidentally set off traps at the wrong time and mess up your strategy. It's certainly a complicated skill to use and requires some thinking. This is Dorothy's signature skill mainly due to the fact that the traps deal arts damage and can hit multiple enemies in a good range, not to mention the decent slow duration that comes with it. So, should you pull and build Dorothy? It's rather difficult to recommend pulling for her if you're a newer player due to the complexity of her skills. As for endgame players, Trapmaster operators aren't a popular choice to bring into challenging content like Contingency Contract. The biggest downside to Dorothy's kit is her inability to place traps on occupied tiles. That being said, You can use pullers or pushers to free up the tile for Dorothy's traps or use Irene to levitate the enemy. Dorothy currently doesn't have any modules. It'll be awesome if Hypergriff were to remove this restriction with her module. But that probably won't happen as it basically makes her skill 2 a perma-bind machine on one enemy. If you're a meta player who wants to get the best value out of an operator and get the highest risk possible in every CC, I'd recommend skipping Dorothy, as Uncle's banner is just around the corner. But if you're a more casual and laid-back player who wants to enjoy the operator's kit to the fullest, Dorothy is probably one of the most fun operators out there to pull for. At the end of the day, it all boils down to your playstyle and preferences when pulling for an operator. So, will you be pulling for Dorothy? Tell me in the comments below, and that's about it for this guide. See you in the comments. Bye.